Welcome everyone to the second exchange from the conversation. Delighted to see so many people here today, some old faces and some new as well. So thank you all for coming, especially those of you who've come from quite some way. I haven't met them here, I haven't seen them yet, but there may be people from Maastricht here. UNU, are you here? Yeah, lovely to see you, thank you. And also we've got people from the north of Scotland and from Dublin, so thank you all for making the trek. So yeah, look, this year has been a very eventful year at the conversation. We've turned 10 years of bringing the experts from your universities to the general public. So thank you for your ongoing support of what we do here at the conversation. It continues to be a turbulent year for universities and for the sector in general. And so we know that is a kind of an ongoing problem, it seems, for many years. Each year brings fresh problems. But we here at the conversation endeavour to do what we can to, recognise your itches and to scratch them. And Exchange is really part of that, alongside the articles that we offer, the training that we offer, the statistics that we offer. Exchange is, and will be in time, an opportunity for you to meet your opposite numbers at other universities and to learn from each other and to learn what works and to, to put into practice the things that we all find can help each other. So, in the spirit of keeping this a useful event for us all, I hope I've done a good job in terms of picking the content for today. So we'll start off with Andrew Bruce Smith, who will be speaking in just a few minutes about AI. Andrew is the chair of the CIPR panel and report on AI in PR. So I look forward to hearing his future predictions and indeed present predictions, I imagine, as it is already upon us. In terms, I might have mentioned it to a few of you here, but I do really want this to be an event that's useful to you and to your organisations. So to that end, I cannot in perpetuity pick the content for this event. I think that would probably end up with more misses than hits. So I want to advertise, if you like, that there will be a steering committee of sorts, a steering group, and I very much welcome volunteers to join that extremely low impact panel. I'm sure it won't take a great deal of your time, but I think this group, this event will benefit from your input from the start. So we'll talk maybe a bit more about that later on this afternoon, but do buttonhole me or Joni if you or someone at your university you think would be a good person to be on that group. This event really is also about bringing two groups of people together: research comms, comms and research comms, and the research office, research impact teams. And this is very much the group of people we have here today. And it's been a bee in my bonnet for a few years to believe that these are two groups of people at universities who probably don't work alongside each other, or with each other, as much as they should do. So this event is very much about bringing you together to help you learn about what each of you respectively do, and most importantly about how you respectively can help each other. So there will be plenty of opportunities for audience participation and feedback later on in the day. And finally, something that both groups of people here, and indeed us at the conversation as editors, struggle with is getting engagement from academics themselves. So we'll talk a bit about that, and we'll hear from our speaker this afternoon, Anthony Watkinson, who will be speaking about some of his long research into cohorts of researchers and what makes them tick and what makes them want to engage. So I'm sure we'll learn something from that. So that's enough from me. Thanks very much for coming. I hope it's a useful and enjoyable day. I'm going to hand over to our keynote speaker, Andrew Bruce Smith. Andrew.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Great to be here. I've got probably half an hour, 40 minutes to give you the full 9 yards on AI, its impacts on PR and comms in the education sector. Just a bit of brief background. What remotely qualifies me to talk about this topic? Yes, you can tell by the grey in my beard. bit of an old man, got a bus pass a few weeks ago. So I've worked in PR and comms for about 38 years, but I've had an interest in AI for 42 years. I went to university to study English literature and philosophy. But I had a friend at the time who was doing computer science, and they gave me this book and said, you might like this. It was called Gödel, Escher, Bach, and still regarded as the Bible of artificial intelligence. Fascinated me at the time, and I've never lost that interest in it. Working in public relations in the late 1980s, my goodness, the fax machine was high-tech then. I worked with a software company, or had a client as a software company that had an AI programming language. I thought, fantastic, I'm going to start building AIs in the 80s. No, I didn't. Two things, I can't program for toffee, and B, the technology patently was overhyped. It did not work. There's a phrase that comes up sometimes in conversations around AI, AI winters. So the term artificial intelligence was originally coined in the late 1950s by the computer scientist John McCarthy. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, you'll get a kind of resurgence of interest in AI and what it's going to do. But historically, big hype, delivering nothing. This time, it's a little bit different. So I've done a lot of work through bodies like the CIPR, the PRCA in the UK, and 5 years ago, the CIPR, we formed the AI in PR panel. Because even 5 years ago, some of us realised, yes, AI clearly is going to be a big deal. And we've been writing research reports and publishing various kind of publications around it. Last year, I and my colleague Stephen Waddington were tasked with writing a report about the impact of AI tools on communications. Now, we were supposed to have delivered that report last October, but we were late. Slap on the wrist, and we said, look, it's a bit late now, it'll get lost in the Christmas rush, let's leave it until January. It's one time in my career where being late was a godsend, because as we all know now, at the end of November last year, ChatGPT emerged into the world, and of course, all bets are off, everything has changed. Now, AI didn't fall out of the sky last November. This has been coming for quite some time. What ChatGPT has done has basically democratized access to a technology that if you felt like it, you could have been doing this stuff a couple of years ago. It's just that now, literally hundreds and hundreds of millions of people around the world can experience for themselves what this technology is capable of. That's a long-winded way of saying that everything I'm going to focus on in this session is hopefully rooted in kind of practical reality. I mean, I've done so many of these kinds of presentations in the last 6 months because there appears to be a bit of a scarcity of people who've got knowledge and experience of AI and communications, so I'm going to do my level best to share that with you. I'll start with this quote, though, from Sundar Pichai of Google, which you might think is a bit over the top. He thinks AI is the greatest thing that we've ever worked on. More profound than electricity or fire. Whoa. Okay, I wouldn't quite go that far, but yes, it is a big deal. And certainly over the last several months, I'm sure you've seen the rise of stories in the media around, ooh, AI, it's going to kill us off, it's going to end us all. It's incredibly dangerous. I'm personally not concerned about AI. I'm always concerned about human beings. It's more about the decisions that are made about the technology and its use thereof. I don't need to spend overly long on a definition of what it is, but a key word on that slide is simulation. It's designed to simulate intelligence in machines. I still think there's a general lack of understanding of what AI does. If we take ChatGPT or large language models, this idea that they can think, well, it doesn't think. It's got no knowledge at all of the outside world whatsoever. It doesn't understand meaning. It's manipulating symbols. In reality, when you use ChatGPT or any of those similar technologies, you feed in a bunch of symbols, letters and words, it converts them into numbers, and it analyzes these statistical relationships between those numbers and then reconverts them back into symbols, which we get back. And we interpret that as, ooh, it's really clever, It can write and it can think. No, it doesn't. I quite like Tom Fishburne. If you've ever come across The Marketunist, he's very good at coming up with stuff. The PR and comms world, I think, this is quite amusing, but it contains a grain of truth. It's like, wow, that's fantastic. AI now. I don't have to write 3,000 words. I can get the machine to do it for me. Click, boom, done. And the person on the other end goes, fantastic, I don't have to read that. I can get the AI to summarize it for me. You know, time saved, isn't that fantastic? And I guess you've got this kind of dystopian vision of, well, we'll just get the machines talking to each other and we can just sit back and just, I don't know, go down the pub or do something else instead. Certainly, if you want to get approval on the comms project, just put AI on it, and job done. Job done. Certainly at the moment. So that's a quick tip for you there. But humour aside, just to lay on with the trowel, AI has been with us for a very, very long time. If you think about something like Google search, we've all been exposed to AI, or at least AI has had a big impact on what we see. 2015, Google introduced RankBrain, which was the AI technology used by Google to decide what anybody sees on a search result page when you type in or ask Google to search for something. And 2018, the engineers that built that AI cheerfully said, we've no idea now why the AI makes the decisions that it does. We built the AI, we haven't got a clue why it does what it does, but hey, the world doesn't seem to mind, so happy days, happy days. So it's been around in various guises. It was just kind of hidden. ChatGPT, as I say, has kind of democratized people's ability to sort of get a flavour of what it can do, and it is quite remarkable when you think that was only last November. Here we are at the end of June. That's what 7-8 months later, and the pace of technological development is quite mind-bending. That's what's quite scary. Just trying to keep up with developments is almost a kind of a fool's errand. If we just take generative AI as a specific example and its relationship to communications, and this is typically where comms and PR's focus to date, writing, creating written content. Yes, GPT or Claude, there's a whole variety of these AIs available, can generate written content. Now, when ChatGPT emerged last November, that was version 3.5. Version 4 came out literally 3 months later. In the jargon of large language models, a key concept is the so-called context window. And the context window, in simple terms, is how much information can I feed into the system and how much will I get back. So with 3.5, you had a context window roughly equivalent to about 2,000 words. If I said, write me a press release, and that's how many words, you'd get, at best, a maximum of 1,900 whatever words back. GPT-4 expands that to about 25,000 words. And now with tools like Claude, you're looking at 100,000 token context windows. I could feed in War and Peace and still get a 25,000 word essay back. What relevance has that got to the work that PR and communications professionals do? Well, where do I start? Imagine that you're creating a campaign. Pour into the hopper, if you will, all of the background information about that campaign and ask GPT or Claude to create an initial draft of the campaign. Yeah, it's going to do it. I'm not suggesting you take that first draft of the campaign off the shelf and run with it, but boy, you'll probably get a lot closer to what you're looking for much more quickly. ChatGPT, again, when it first arrived, people said, well, it's been trained on data that's accurate up until the end of 2021, but it doesn't know anything about what happened after that. Well, that's been solved because in March, they announced the availability of so-called plugins to use with the tool, which basically augments the capability of ChatGPT. There are now about 150 plugins available to do that, doing everything from reading URL content, PDFs, research. There you go. Upload 20 PDFs of research papers and say, analyze that lot and come back and give me a summary of it. Thank you very much. That's quite helpful. And the point here is that that's occurred in literally the last few months. At the moment, what's going to happen in the next 6 months? Well, who knows? Even the people running the AI companies say, we don't know either. We're going to crack on with the pace of development until someone tells us to stop. But if we maintain this kind of pace, blimey, what kind of presentation will I be giving in December? Maybe I'll have my own AI avatar doing it for me, which would be amazing, because I can do 2 presentations or three at once. It's not just about text, image creation. DALL-E's been around for a couple of years, but Midjourney is the current tool that everyone, I say everyone, certainly those in the AI space are raving about the capabilities of Midjourney to generate realistic imagery, and it is quite remarkable. You want a photo, no, it's not even photorealistic, it's a photo. Pick a photographer that you like. I spent 7 years working in an office next door to the photographer Anton Corbijn, famous rock photographer, did the front cover of the U2 album, and my guilty pleasure. I love creating photographs in Midjourney as though they were taken by Anton Corbijn. If I'd show the Anton, he'd go, "You've stolen my my portfolio." Now again, I can see what you're thinking. Blind, that sounds a bit dodgy. Ethics, copyright, all that. Yeah, I'm getting to that. Don't worry. But image creation. Runway ML. That's a tool. It's free. Try it out. That's text to video. Type in your prompt and say, I want a video about X, and it creates the entire video for you. Now, admittedly, at the moment, it'll do 10 seconds of video, max. But I've had to play around with it, and others have, and it's like, wow, that's scarily good. That is scarily good. Give it 6 months, maybe it will be able to create 2-minute, 3-minute, 5-minute videos from a single text prompt that you input. Audio. There's a tool called ElevenLabs. If you haven't tried this one out, I'm both excited and scared by it. So ElevenLabs effectively is a voice cloning technology. Now, voice cloning is not new. It's been around for years, but historically, if you wanted to clone somebody's voice, you'd have to give them a script, and they'd have to kind of read from that script for a couple of hours to train it to, and even then, did the voice sound like them? Nah, not really. ElevenLabs only requires 1 minute of a recording of the person's voice you want to clone. And for $5, it does it. And it sounds just like them. And it's not robotic, and you can adjust it for pace and emotion. Oh my goodness. They've now just released a library of synthesized voices that you can use. So certainly in the area of, say, audio content. So imagine that you would love to do a podcast, perhaps involving academics, but the idea of corralling academics in one place and recording it all, if you could convince them to have their voices cloned, you don't need them. Because you can take their voice, you can't say anything. Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. But the synthesized voices, I had a scan through the library, and I saw one that it said, oh, this sounds like the actor Tom Hiddleston. So I tried it, it's like, that is Tom Hiddleston. So for a bit of a laugh, I got Tom to say some nice things about me. I played to my wife, and she's like, how did you get Tom? I said, he didn't. It's a cloned voice. The ElevenLabs tool can now, you can take a cloned voice and you get it to say things in 10 different languages. You want Tom Hiddleston to speak perfect Hindi? Yes, he can. Clone a voice of the person you want, and you can now take content in one language, and they can say it with immaculate pronunciation in those languages. My French now is amazing. My German's amazing. My Hindi's brilliant. Yeah, you get the idea. So all I'm saying is that the future's already here, just unevenly distributed. So I'm kind of bigging up the kind of, wow, isn't this amazing? But clearly there are kind of lots of interrelated issues around this. I mean, first of all, just because you can do something, should you? I've done so many of these kind of presentations, and I've talked to many organizations, and clearly there are different ways that organizations are approaching it. I mean, some are taking a very kind of ultra cautious approach. So, for example, in the corporate world, Samsung has completely banned the use of ChatGPT. whoa, okay. As has Apple, apart from one person. Tim Cook, the CEO, gets to use it, and he apparently loves it. Nobody else can have it. He can. Not sure what kind of signal that sends out. So you've got organisations that are taking that blanket approach. So that would be disappointing, wouldn't it? I'd love to be able to try some of this stuff out, but I'm not allowed to. Of course, what's happening is that people are saying, well, sod it, I'm going to use my own device then. It just drives its usage underground. If you think back to the early days of social media, I remember in 2010 walking into the communications department at the Department of Environment, and I said, so, social media? And they said, yeah, we're not allowed to use it on our work computers. I'm like, mind blown. I said, well, how do you do the job then? They said, well, we use our own devices. Yeah, because we can't not be on social media. We've got nearly 2,000 different stakeholder groups that we need to be thinking about at any one time. So it is utterly crazy. So that was a classic case of, that was an IT policy. IT said, no, you can't have it. Of course, eventually that was rescinded. But I'm getting a sense that that's sort of reappearing again. I don't know. You'll know yourselves. I think what many organisations are saying is let's experiment with caution. So the UK government currently, as I understand it, is saying we don't mind you using things like ChatGPT and all these other AI technologies, but be sensible. Don't go uploading highly sensitive classified information into the LLM. Who knows? Maybe people are, but there we go. So, as I say, it hasn't just fallen out of the sky. It's been around for a while, but certainly in the last 7 to 8 months, the pace of development is pretty crazy. Personally, I'm a professional optimist, and I think there's massive opportunities for AI to support literally every aspect of the PR and communications process. This is a pathetically short list. There are just so many different ways in which we can use it. Writing content, self-evidently. Write a press release, yeah, whatever. Write a communications plan. Better still, give as much information as possible to the large language model. In fact, I've said that it's not sentient, but a great way to work with it is to imagine that you are working with a real person. Encourage it. Hey GPT, you are an expert in developing comms plans for UK universities. In fact, no, this university. Give it information about your university and the audiences that you're targeting, and it goes, oh, great, okay, I'll take that on board. What do you want? What do you want? Break it down, be explicit. I think it's a question that I'm always asked by people. How do I get better at writing prompts for GPT or these other models? And partly it's a case of, well, just start using it. Experiment, try for yourself. And I think what I've discovered, of course, is that certainly for organisations, it would be a good idea to kind of document when you find a good one and make sure it's shared within the team. Don't keep it to yourself. Back in the bad old days of, ooh, I've got that journalist's email address. If you're working in an agency, it's like, I know I'm supposed to share it with everybody else, but I'm going to hang on to that because that gives me a bit of an edge. So OpenAI itself, a couple of weeks ago, and I've got the link later on, provided their own guidelines to writing better prompts. And I heartily commend you to read that because it's really quite good. Rule number 1, GPT or a large language model can't read your mind. Give it a good brief. Give it a good brief and you will get better output from the tool. Crisis communications. Wow, it's really good at coming up with crisis communication scenarios. Media trainer. GPT is a pretty good media trainer. Say to GPT, hey, you're a journalist writing for whatever publication you want. Financial Times. Tell GPT, I told it, I said, I'm the CEO of Shell. Here are the latest financial results. Ask me some aggressive questions about these results. It came back and said, I'm sorry, I'm an AI, I'm not allowed to be aggressive. So, okay. So I said, all right then, probing questions, how about that? Well, that's all right, off we go. And no holds barred. Ask some pretty tough questions. How do you justify making these profits when, wow, that's pretty good. So my point here is that I wake up literally every morning going, well, there's something else I could try it with. why not? What have I got to lose? Let's see what happens. So I've laid it on with the trowel. There's so much, I think, positive things that you can do using just the kind of text generation AIs that are available. But even in the area of, say, image generation, being able to have an idea and then generate that image for illustrative purposes, fantastic, rather than having to kind of go off and spend a lot of time and effort and money at doing that. So I've kind of led up to this. Prompt engineering, is this a kind of a vital skill? And I'd say yes, it is. There's a really good academic in the States, Professor Ethan Mollick. I don't know if anyone's come across Ethan Mollick. He's a professor at the Wharton Business School. His blog, One Useful Thing, is fantastic in my humble opinion. Famously, back in January, he said to his own students, AI, fill your boots. Let's go on a journey. I'm not going to tell you can't use GPT or AI to help you with your coursework. Go for it. Let's see what happens. And he's been kind of documenting how he's got on there. I mean, interestingly, he found that, well, will students just cheat? Well, they didn't. Fantastic. I don't know if he's got a special group of students that aren't. But no, they were quite grown up and sensible. They realised that, yeah, sure, I could push a button and get GPT to write my essay, but a bit self-defeating, isn't it? Because that won't, I haven't learned anything. I mean, Professor Mollick's kind of view is that, well, is AI kind of now suggesting, well, maybe the way that we teach, does it need to change? He argues that, for example, a lecture is a pretty poor way of conveying information. Maybe there are better ways to kind of help people to learn and test. One of my favourite examples from him, though, is that just as an experiment, he said, well, maybe I could get GPT to kind of help me with my lessons, come up with more exciting ways of imparting information. So I asked it to create a game that you could use in class. Pushed the button, and it came back to, there you go, there's the game. Turns out GPT is a really good game inventor. Came out with the kind of the instructions and what was needed, etc., and the outcomes. Wow. And then he said, well, can you make that a computer game? Push the button. There you go, computer code. Wrote the code for the game. No way. So he wrote it in Python. He puts it into the compiler. Does it work? Yes. Crazy. So I thought, I'll give that a go. So I do a lot of training work. And I thought, okay, write a game that I can use in a training workshop for, say, senior business people that helps them to understand the value of, say, media relations. Push the button, comes back with a game. That's not bad. I might just use that. And I thought, get it to write the computer game. And it did. Code, did it work? Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty basic text computer game. What I'm saying is that, don't just narrowly look at it as, can I get this to write a press release for me? There is just so many possibilities of how you can use it. Now, there are concerns around, well, how accurate is it? Things like facts, it hallucinates, that's the term, makes stuff up. I sympathise with the AI. It's not making stuff up, it's doing its job. It is statistically analysing the input it's been given and giving you back what it thinks is the most probable distribution of those symbols. It's got no understanding of meaning, it's just doing what it was asked to do. We're the ones that know the connection to the real world. It doesn't know that. But again, if you want to make it factually accurate, well, that's why you're there, to check it. So we're not all out of a job. I like the line from Sam Altman, who's the head of OpenAI, where he says that AI should be replacing tasks, not jobs. And I definitely agree with that view of it. But to go back to this idea of the use of GPT, that's just kind of one kind of tiny example of where it can be used. In terms of the big developments in the last couple of months, and again, I have to keep reminding myself that if I think something's going to take a year to happen, it'll probably take a couple of months. If it's going to take a month, it'll probably take a week. So the ChatGPT plugins, I've already mentioned those. If you said to me in January, GPT's capabilities will be augmented with all these other things by within 2 months, I'd have gone, no way. But there we were. Autonomous AI. Again, it sounds like science fiction. What is autonomous AI? Well, back in March, like it was an Italian developer said, hey, I've created this thing called AutoGPT. This is where you literally tell the AI, that's what I want. That's the outcome I'm looking for. You go off and figure out how to do it. And then, of course, as is the way these days, tens of thousands of other developers go, ooh, we'll have a go at that. And if you're on Twitter, Twitter's still the best place to keep up with all these kind of great new AI developments. And my rule of thumb now is, well, give it another week, and someone's bound to put a nice, easy-to-use web front end on this. And sure enough, there's a tool called Cognosis, cognosis.ai. If you try to access it now, they'll put you on a waiting list because it's got very popular, but I got in early on. And I thought, great, let's give this a punt. Let's see how good this autonomous AI stuff is. Bear in mind, it's only been out for a couple of weeks, so give it a bit of leeway. And I gave it a very simple task. I said, go away and identify for me the top journalists for this particular sector, technology, in the UK, and factor in, the reach of the outlets and the publications. Push the button, and off it goes. You watch it thinking. So it says, what should I do first? Maybe I should look at the web and try and identify these outlets and publications. And Julie does. Then it says, right, I better identify the journalists. Drew up a short list of 50. I was looking for 5, but it came with an initial short list. And then completely independently, it said, maybe I should check out the social media profiles of these journalists and look at how many followers they've got and what kind of engagement they've got. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty good. Pretty good. I didn't tell you to do that, but it kind of worked out that was something it should. 3 minutes later, I've got a short list. Was it any good? Well, the first one, it had Rory Ketland-Jones, who of course had retired 2 years ago. So that was the fact that it only knew about the world up until the end of 21. Whatever. But the other 4, I thought, that's not bad. And to be fair, this has only existed for a few weeks. You think about GPT. 3 years ago, GPT was monkeys playing Scrabble. It's rubbish. Look at it now. Give autonomous AI another few months or a year or two, and there are bound to be tasks that you'll get your autonomous AI to do that a human being might have done now, but hey, it frees up your time to do other stuff. I've worked in PR since the mid-80s. We've been moaning forever about, if only I had more time to focus on being strategic and creative and value-added. If only I didn't have to do all this boring stuff, like contact reports. There's a practical example. AI meeting assistant tools. I've been using one for about 6 months. They're brilliant. If you've got an online meeting, the AI turns up, faithfully records what's been said, and writes the contact report for you. Fantastic. All those hours now saved. You're all sort of shuffling. Who's going to write the notes? Not me. Please not me. It's not my turn. Another upside a few weeks ago, because I've connected it to my calendar, so it just turns up for every meeting. Even I'm not there. And there was a meeting I couldn't attend a few weeks ago, and I thought, I better find out what was discussed. And they said, well, you don't need to. Your AI turned up, and we let him in. So you'll know what we talked about. It's quite hilarious because I went and looked at the contact report the AI wrote, and it got to the point where it said, attendees discussed the fact that Andrew hadn't turned up, but I had. Like, ooh, passive-aggressive AI. Yeah, I was there, but you weren't. So got a bit of a sense of humour as well. But yeah, seriously, and that seems quite mundane, but again, if you think about the hours that are spent on that kind of activity, take that away, that frees up. So I know people can say, well, I do that now, so that's taking part of my job away. But surely you don't want to do that. Surely if you've now got those out, now you can be more strategic, creative, value add, all those things. That's really good. The last one, without being too techie about it, open source AI. So with large language models like ChatGPT, etc., these companies have spent literally billions building these underlying models. Now, a company that doesn't get talked about a lot in the AI space, but they should be, is Facebook. Facebook are no slouches when it comes to AI. Jan LeCun heads up AI at Facebook. He's one of the so-called godfathers of AI. And Facebook have built their own version of GPT. It's called Llama, spending hundreds of millions doing that. But at the end of March, they said, going to give it away. What? That's unbelievable. You're giving away your technology. They've open sourced it. So, as somebody quipped, anyone who's got a spare evening and a beefy laptop can now download that model and start fine-tuning it for their own purposes. And it's kind of interesting because I know there are clearly concerns around the use of ChatGPT, etc., from a confidentiality, sensitive information standpoint. You know, OpenAI says, "Oh yeah, we don't store any of your prompts, don't you?" Okay. Do I trust you? Samsung don't. Tim Cook does, but the rest of Apple not allowed to. And other organisations adopting a similar approach. But if you've got your own, well, it's yours. You know, it's sitting on your servers and it's protected, and you can put whatever you want in there, and it's kind of it's kind of safe. You can fine tune it and tweak it for your specific purposes. You know, train it on your data, your model. Now, I'm not going to pretend that PR professionals are all now sitting there at night going, "Yay!" Because it's not quite that simple. But the mere fact that they've given that away, and that's the bit that costs all the money. You know, now we're talking about spending hundreds of dollars to fine-tune an AI rather than spending hundreds of millions to build the underlying model. And there's a piece in The Economist last week saying, well, actually, is the age of the big AI model now dead anyway, and the focus is now much more on other developments. Anyway, that's what's happened in the last couple of months. That's a big deal. Who knows? Give it another couple of months, and I'll be adding to that list. In terms of specific tools, because again I get asked this all the time, it's like, Andrew, how many tools are out there now? I mean, at the last count, there have been 20,000 new AI-related tools released this year. You need an AI to go away and look at them all and tell you which ones to look at. But if I'm pushed to single out one in particular, it sounds quite dull actually, but it's pretty good, I think. It's an extension for Google Sheets and Google Docs. It's called GPT for Sheets and Docs. And it basically brings that AI power into those two specific Google tools. So in the case of Google Docs, you have your prompt box there on the right-hand side. And whatever you put into the prompt, the output goes into the document. So you can work within the document and using the AI. So rather than toggling back and forth between ChatGPT, that's quite good. The Sheets extension, I think, is insane. This is where you can apply GPT to the data held in a spreadsheet. So in a communications context, here's my favourite one. You know, imagine, I'm sure you all do, you'll have, or many of you will, you've got a spreadsheet and it contains a whole raft of media coverage URLs, for example. You want to do some analysis of that? What would you normally do right now? Well, probably human beings have to read them all and sort of write it up. What if you push a button and say to GPT, analyse that coverage for me, summarise it, analyse it for sentiment, analyse it for spokespeople references, analyse it for messaging. Ask it whatever question you want, and in 2 seconds, the output comes straight back into that spreadsheet. Whoa, that's brilliant, isn't it? I love that. I'm thinking all those kind of media monitoring companies out there charging quite often lots of money for this stuff must be quaking in their boots. In fact, Maria Kaleva, who I know very well, she's at a company called Cometric. She came out and said it 2 months ago. She said, yeah, GPT, on sentiment analysis alone, GPT is much better than any of the existing third-party tools out there in the market. I'm thinking, that's very bold. You know, that's your business. You're basically saying that your own offering is inferior to GPT. Cost-wise, we're talking fractions of a penny. I mean, it's crazy nuts. So that's available today. Of course, the caveat is that, well, yeah, Google's not sitting there thinking, oh, that's great, we'll let GPT basically have access to all of our customers. They're going to, and they are already rolling out these kinds of AI capabilities into all of their own tools, whether that's Google Docs, Google Sheets. Microsoft, exactly the same. In March, Microsoft announced this project called Copilot. And if you watch the Copilot promotion video, it's like, blimey, if it could do half of what they claim, that's pretty incredible. That's where Microsoft is going to put into Word and Excel and PowerPoint all of this AI technology. You know, imagine saying, yeah, right, presentation, click, done. Data. There's a spreadsheet full of numbers. And I'd love to be able to get some insights from that, get the AI to analyze it for you. ChatGPT, one of the plugins is called the Code Interpreter. Annoyingly, I haven't got it yet. I'm still on the wait list. But Professor Molik's got it, and he raves about it. Literally, he's been uploading spreadsheets of data. You have to tell it what it is. It works it out. It does the analysis. Even recommends the correct chart format to display that data. Fantastic. A 24/7 available data analyst. I'm sure you can start to begin to think about the capabilities. So that's rolling out to users of ChatGPT Plus as we speak. As I say, the point being that if you do nothing else, certainly having a quick look at the GPT, if you've got access to Google Docs and Sheets, I suggest it's well worth doing that. On broader issues, let's kind of circle back here. Quite clearly, there are huge issues to think through here. The technology it's there. It's either freely or cheaply available. The sad fact is, for motivated bad actors everywhere, the opportunities to kind of create mischief have just gone up even further. The ability to create fast, cheap, fake audio, images, video, exploiting the social media algorithms, the reputational dangers of this technology and the impact that's going to have on comms teams and professionals having to kind of think that through, mitigate against it if it happens, etc. So the challenges. Well, the first one I've already alluded to it. The technological developments. I can't see them slowing down anytime soon. The tech companies themselves have definitely gone back into ask for forgiveness, not permission mode. I was talking over coffee earlier that it's kind of remarkable that all of the big tech firms that previously had internal AI ethics teams have either completely removed them or drastically downsized them. Microsoft's got rid of their entire AI ethics team. Google's now down to about one person and a dog from a previous team of 50. Personally, I think that's a bad look. What is that? What message is that sending to the world that, do you know what? Nah, ethics, forget that. We're going to crack on until somebody somewhere, governments or whatever, might slow us down. OpenAI, I noted yesterday, being sued in California, being sued over how they've collected the data to create the tool. That's the first of many. Midjourney, all the image AI tools, they're all being sued by Getty Images. They've got a point, I guess. Hang on a minute, you've basically appropriated our copyrighted content to create your language model. You haven't asked permission, you haven't paid us any money, and you're cheerfully exploiting that and making money yourself out of it and allowing others to use that to their benefit. I'm not a lawyer, I've no idea where that's going to end up, but that's where we are. Ethics-wise, well, there's two ways to look at this. As PRs and comms professionals, doesn't matter where you work, the ethics of declaring where you have used AI. As a paid-up member of the CIPR and the PRCA, there's a code of conduct that says, as a PR professional, I'm expected to work in an open, honest, and transparent fashion. So if I've used AI, I almost certainly should be telling people I've used AI. But to what extent do I declare the detail? Oh, I use AI, full stop. Or, yes, these are the tools that we use to do our work. Is that enough to satisfy you? Or do I need to get to the level of, there's a press release. Headline, that was me. First paragraph, that was the AI. Third paragraph, me and the AI together. Wow, 75% AI, 25%. Yeah, you see where that's kind of going. I mean, we don't have to tell people that we use Google or we use a computer anymore. I suspect long term that's where we get to. But again, declaring where you've used that technology is definitely of ethical concern. And legal. Well, let's take copyright. What a mess. What a mess when it comes to AI. I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is in the UK, if I use an AI tool to generate content, I own the copyright. Fantastic, happy days. If I'm in America, I don't. It belongs to the platform that was used to create it. In the EU, my understanding is that the EU, and again, the EU is pushing forward with the most stringent AI regulation on the planet. They're focused on, well, where was the content created? Well, where was it created? Is it the server owned by the platform, which could be, I don't know, in America? Is it my laptop? Let's, for argument's sake, say that tomorrow, I'm not, but if I did, I might be going to Paris tomorrow, and I've got my laptop, and I create content. Does that mean it's subject to French copyright law? Because I was in Paris when I generated it, and when I go back to London, it's like, it's mine now. I don't know. But if you're creating content using AI for use in a public environment, and there are issues of copyright concern, well, you need to be aware of those things. I did a session a couple of weeks ago, and sitting right next to me was the UK head of communications for Amnesty. And I don't know whether it was as a result of my talk, or they were going to do this anyway, and thought, well, we'll carry on. But a week later, Amnesty put out a press release, and it was supported by AI-generated images. They were quite open and said, yeah, we've used AI to create these images. But they came in for criticism. People said, why is Amnesty, of all people, resorting to using fake images? Why do you feel that, shouldn't you, of all people, be using real pictures of real people in real situations? Now, they acted completely above board and obviously thought, let's give this a go and see what happens. Well, they found out what happens in their particular context. And I don't know. I haven't been back in touch with the head of PR there. But you know, are they now thinking, well, we tried it. let's not do that again. Or okay, first time, bit of a test. Let's sort of see where it may be appropriate for us in the future to use AI-generated content versus not. Quick final plug for the report that I wrote with Stephen Waddington, which we published in February this year. This is the one that should have come out last October, but came out in February. When we wrote and published it, I mean, I remember right that evening thinking, my fear is that this will be out of date within weeks. Fortunately, I think I'm on safe ground in saying that the most of our kind of key observations in that report are still holding true. The bits we got wrong were just the pace with which things would happen. In that report, we thought GPT-4 would come out at the end of the year. It came out within a couple of weeks. But the other, I think, really important point about, or section of that report is the focus not just on the effect of AI on the work that we do as comms professionals, but the role of comms professionals very often in looking at the reputation of the organizations that we work for. And thinking about the reputational implications of the use or otherwise of AI across the entire organization. We're here today primarily to talk about comms, but the fact is, of course, AI affects literally everything. Legal, HR, operations, IT. Take HR, the use of AI for recruitment. What about bias in the algorithms? That's already been the case. There have been AI tools around for years. There's a tool called Crystal Knows that it can take a person's LinkedIn profile and generate a kind of personality trait map, purely looking at their LinkedIn profile. Recruiters have been using that for years. Ooh, you want to recruit someone who's got that kind of personality trait within this team? Because we've analysed the team and we can see that, given the dynamics, that we would want somebody who's in the kind of like bottom right quadrant, using the DISC model. Click, bam, there it is. I don't know. Is that good, bad, or indifferent? I don't know. But that's been going on for a very, very long time. When the public starts to figure out that that's the sort of thing that's going on, what's going to happen there? Anyway, you get the idea. If you haven't read it already, it's there. I still think it's worth a read. That was it. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Hi, I'm Jean Milan from University of Greenwich. I was just curious, you mentioned the, I think it was called Rank Brain, I don't know if I got that, but the fact that the people involved lost even the desire to interrogate what it was doing, etc. And that sort of concerns me just because, how do you know it's not taking us all in the merry dance? And maybe the data is just so huge that we can't interrogate it. So what?
Well, there we go. Absolutely, I entirely agree. I mean, there's a term that some people are using now called industrial capture. in relation to AI. The idea that a tiny number of basically companies and individuals effectively have the levers of power when it comes to AI. You've got OpenAI itself, you've got Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon. People don't talk about Amazon in relation to AI, but Amazon quietly in the background is saying, hey, look, we've got Amazon Web Services, we're going to provide these models that people can use. The United Arab Emirates, interestingly, as a government, have used an Amazon AI called Falcon, and they've built this model and now allowing the citizens of the UAE to freely access this language model. And of course, they're fine-tuning it with their own kind of data and information. In fact, The Economist last couple of weeks ago said, the UK government should pay attention to that, because it's all very well saying, yes, we want to be a world leader in AI, but we've been a bit slow off the mark. And it's all very well saying, we're earmarking £100 million to this. It's like, that's chicken feed compared to the billions that the big AI companies have spent. The compute, the kind of massive computing infrastructure that you're likely to need to have to build something like that. But do you need to bother? If, for example, Amazon says, look, for a couple of $100, you could build something that's fit for purpose in that respect. But to answer your question, of course. And there's Google with Microsoft, as I said. In Google's case, they've reduced their AI ethics team from whatever it was, 30, 40 people to about 2. What does that say about their interest in the ethical use and deployment of AI? I mean, one of the great ironies is that the OpenAI, ChatGPT, the technology, what does GPT stand for? Does anybody know? Yeah. It's a generative preformed transformer. Google's own researchers created this transformer technology, which really revolutionized the state of AI. They gave it away in 2018. They said, this is really interesting. Being researchers, they thought, let's share it with the community. And they did. Fantastic. Thanks very much. OpenAI, off they go, get some money. And the transformer approach to large language models is what's revolutionized that bit of AI. But the fact is that Google, by all accounts, could easily have launched a tool like ChatGPT years ago, and they chose not to, because they realized this is powerful stuff. To be fair, Google acted responsibly, I think. They said, look, let's just wait a bit, and maybe we should sort of do a lot more testing behind closed doors and look at guardrails, etc. But when GPT emerged, they were like, bollocks. Let's throw ethics out the window, because they're going to absolutely decimate us. I mean, interesting sidebar with search. So I never thought I'd hear myself saying this, but Google has dominated search for 20 years. There's poor old Bing. Sad face emoji, tiny market share. But now that Bing clearly for months now has incorporated an AI chat box. I mean, it's not taken 50% of Google's market share, but it's definitely gone from whatever it is, 2% to 5% in a matter of months. That's a pretty big leap. And Google's gone, well, we're going to do that. So they're going to roll out that chat interface on the search page. Now the worry there, well, lots of worries. First of all, normal organic search results get pushed further and further and further down the result page. The fear is people will just go there and go, well, I'll just use a chat box, and I'll take whatever answer I get back from the AI, and that's fine, that'll do me. No reference to the source of the information. You'll just accept it as given. And all that work you've put into SEO perhaps over the years, it's like, well, thanks a bundle. Or the traffic that you would have traditionally received from Google, because there's your web link and somebody clicks it and comes to your website. Is that all good? Publishers are already seeing it. Media sites are already seeing a decline in traffic. In fact, they're being hit by all sides. They're seeing a decline in traffic from Facebook, a decline in traffic from search, which historically has driven the majority of traffic, because certainly Google is introducing more and more of these elements to the search page, which basically just give the response there and then. It's not acting as a mechanism for delivering somebody to your website. It's in fact, people say, well, what's the point now? If we create content and Google says, thanks a bundle, we'll put that into our AI, and that'll help fuel the answers we give people, but we won't credit you for the source of it. It's like, yeah, I mean, that you know, we could be here all night on that one, or all day, or whatever. But if it's not strayed too far from the original question, I entirely share your concern that the big companies creating these AI technologies right now don't seem to be too bothered about the ethical considerations of it. And there's a whole raft of issues around, you know, bias, etc., that we could again spend all morning on. But I'm here for coffee later.
Any other questions?
Thanks. Do you have any good case studies of university PR and comms teams already using?
So the short answer is no, and the reason for that is it's a bit soon. And also, quite frankly, if anybody has found an amazing way of using it, they're like, well, why are we going to share that with anybody else? You know, let's kind of have a bit of an edge on it. But in all seriousness, I mean, I'm clearly aware of people using it in many of the ways that I have described. So, one of the things that GPT is certainly good at is summarization. So that ability to say, well, here's a whole bunch of background information. So in the past, well, the example I gave, we've got a particular communications campaign we want to run. So where would you start? You're staring at the blank screen. I have to create a plan. Well, you'd do some research, wouldn't you? Who's the audience? Who's the intended audience for that campaign? What do we know about them? In this case, well, you might ask GPT to go out and say, well, imagine you are that person. Go away and find what information you can and come back and create that persona. Then you might say, great, well, I've got some initial messages. GPT, imagine you are that person. I'm going to give you these messages. How would you respond to that messaging if you were that person, a member of that stakeholder audience? And it will give you a response. I'm not saying you just accept it at face value, but again, as a starting point, it's really good. It's really good as a creative support. Hey GPT, you're an amazing creative PR message generator. Here's my audience, here's my campaign, here's the outcome I'm seeking. Give me 50 brilliant messages for me. And it will. Hey, 45 of them might be, but one or two of you think, it's not bad. And one of them you might go, wow, I never thought of that. That's quite good. I can work with that. I can work with it. Or write the first draft yourself and get GPT to critique your first go. You don't have to accept what it tells you, but if you're looking for some third-party kind of insight, it's always there, 24/7. Never sleeps. It's really quite good for that.
I want to get, we're out of time unfortunately, but I want to get one more question in.
Yeah, it was really Nikki from Edge Hill University. Really interested in the audio opportunities. Are there any AI out there to produce a really good, authentic podcast?
It's already been done. I mean, there are already podcasts on Spotify that have been entirely created using AI. I mean, maybe that's taking it too far. The scripts generated through AI, the voices. You can clone somebody's voice, and then you could use GPT. GPT can automatically convert the text output into audio using the Whisper API. In fact, quick trick with if you have an OpenAI account, which I urge everyone to have, doesn't cost anything, because it's got the playground. So in the playground, there's a tiny little microphone icon. You can upload audio content and get GPT to translate or create a transcript from the audio for fractions of a penny. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But to your point, yes, it's already been done. People are already using AI to create entire podcasts. I mean, actually going to the point of getting AI to write the entire script, or at least you could use the AI to assist the creation of the script. But yeah, absolutely. That's the positive upside, is, as I say, if you've always hankered after creating a podcast using certain people, but the gating factor was, well, are they going to spend 2 hours a week sitting, we want to do a weekly podcast, for example. Love to do that. What's the likelihood on get 2 hours of that person's time without fail every week to sit down, record it, do the script? No, it's never going to happen. But you know, if it's done in the right way, clone their voice. You know, they're happy with that, and there you go. But then again, you see, if you put that podcast out, you probably have to say to people, AI has been used, and if people are listening to it going, well, that is a clone of that real person's voice. Are you going to declare to the audience, it's not them? It's not them. I don't know. That's another ethical consideration. But yeah, it's early days. Early days.
Thank you very much. We're going to have to do that. Thank you very much.